What's going on, my friends? Million here with you, MILLIAN for millionspeaks.com, your vocal care and maintenance emporium. Happy New Year if you're watching this in January 2026. New Year's just passed and it's on to some new things here, getting into new areas. And as I'm preparing myself for this year coming up and the people that I want to work with and the areas that I'm trying to sort of break into to work with, I decided to go on a couple websites and put out questions. It's amazing how much people tear into you for simply asking questions. It's really funny. But I went on this one site, and I won't mention the name because it's a little embarrassing. Not OnlyFans, please don't do that. But I went on the site and I posted a question to a couple different groups that I'm interested in working with. And so I put this thing out there and I said, let me ask you a question. In your line of work, do you have these voice problems? What's your experience? What's your situation? And let's put it like this. The people on the lower levels were like, yes, we need this. You got to help us. I don't know what to do. The people on the more management upper level of things are some of the most cocky and arrogant people I think I've ever met in my life. It's one of the funniest things. It's one of the funniest dichotomies. Because you would think, well, maybe we're in lockstep. A lot of these people used to be on the low level. Now they're on the high levels. And you would think maybe they knew. Maybe I'm wrong. What do I know? So I put this thing out and we're going back and forth for a couple days. Someone decides to come along and say, well, I work in this field, but I'm also an SLP, which is a speech language pathologist. Now, an SLP is more the medical side of things. They're the ones that help you with voice therapy and rehab, and they're in that realm of things. Now, yes, you have to go through a good bit of schooling and training, and you have to get your hours and work under people and the clinical stuff. You got to do all that. Now, first thing I just want to say to you is that I am not adversarial in any way to SLPs. In fact, when I was going through voice therapy, my SLP, Miriam, was one of the best people in this whole mix. She was the one that actually realized that I'd been diagnosed because when I went to the doctor, he actually didn't tell me for whatever reason. And so when I went to her, we started working together. She looked at the paper and I said, Miriam, did he actually diagnose me? And that's when she came up with the MTD. And I was like, oh. So finally, she was actually someone helpful in this. And she was actually pivotal in helping me get my voice back. So I am not adversarial in any way to professionals on this line. But this person that was sort of getting into it with me, they said, well, I looked on your website and I don't see any credentials. I don't see any sort of certifications or this or that. And I'm like, okay, all right, let me stop you there for a second, Tex. I said, look, just because you have a piece of paper does not mean you're qualified to do anything. Okay, let's just lay that flat out right now. A lot of times college degrees, hate to break this to you, a lot of times college degrees are staying power. Is that, can you get through this? Can you put in the time and get it done? I know I have a college degree. I did the same thing. I'm pursuing one right now, pursuing another one. And so just because there's a paper doesn't mean you know what you're doing. Now, it means you may have received a training. It may mean you know vocabulary that you actually may know a good bit of information. But there's an element of, have you done this for real in the real world? Have you actually done this to a point where you've actually worked with flesh and bone humans? Now, I've been doing this for 30-something years, more than that probably, and across all areas, whether it be singing, speaking, broadcast, podcast, voiceover, vocal coaching, all these different things. I have a degree in something different that wasn't initially for this, although I have things that I'm working on for this year that include my psychology training, but that's for another video. And so just because I don't have an SLP degree or certification, whatever that case is, you also have to remember that that is a way, very wide discipline of things that you have to be trained for. Now, out of that entire discipline of SLP, I do maybe like this part, this much of it. Okay, so why would I go through all that training, number one, just to use a fraction of what I need when I already know what to do? Now, I am not offering medical care. I'm not offering therapy. I'm not offering treatment. I don't put hands on anybody like some practitioners might. I don't do any of that stuff. What I do in my training is I try to catch you before you start having a medical problem so you don't have to go through this, so you don't have to go what I went through. I try to get you into good habits and proper breathing and posture and vocal positioning so that you can function properly the whole time and not have to worry about this stuff. Because once you cross over into this, it's not a fun world. I've been there. It sucks, man. And so what I kind of went on to say, I said, all right, let me lay this out for you. I said, I've been doing this for 30 years. I already have a degree. Next year, I'm going to have a second degree. Okay, there's some credentials for you. I've worked with people from everyday people that are just in business. I've worked with keynote speakers. I've worked with TEDx speakers. I've worked with well-known Las Vegas musicians. I've worked with a good cross-section of people doing my method, okay? I actually have results. I have a track record. I actually have people that will say, wow, Million was really good at what he did. He helped me a lot. To me, that means a whole lot. I hate to break it to you. Let's use a simple example. Doctors, lawyers, that's always the traditional one. In my life, I used to work at a law firm. I know lawyers that are frigging idiots. I have no idea how they got a degree. I have no clue how they passed the bar. I have no clue how they practice, but they're lawyers. That's a pretty big deal, right? I have in my life encountered doctors that if they were a veterinarian, I wouldn't let them work on my hermit crabs. No clue how some of these people can actually practice. I used to work in my 20s. I was an instructor at 2 colleges in southern New Jersey. I know professors, I know instructors, how these people manage to not only be employed by a college or a university, do what they do, and still know how to tie their shoes. This is how stupid some of these people are, and the only reason they have their job and their tenure is because they have that mythical piece of paper. And so I sort of laid into this person, and it sort of got me thinking, and I was like, all right, let's work this through for a second. There are things in this world today that we marvel at, such as architecture, let's say. The pyramids, Great Wall of China, Chichen Itza, the Roman Colosseum. Thousands of years ago, people did not have colleges and certifications and degrees. They weren't architect majors. They didn't have this. They were people that actually learned how to do this in the real world, were trained how to do this by other people that knew what they were doing, actually did it by application. And 3,000 years later, we're still marveling at this architecture. Modern day architecture, I should say, they go through all this trouble, all this training, all these degrees and certifications that they have to go through. What do? They build these gray boxes that we slap the word Walmart on, and 20, 30 years from now, the buildings are falling apart. Okay, so make that make sense to me. Authority is something that you gain because you actually do the work and you do it and you learn how to do it properly. That's authority. Authority tends to be something you earn, whereas a credential is something you purchase. And I hate to make it sound like that, but ultimately, that's what it comes down to. Now, there are, of course, situations where you have to have that. I get it. Okay, I'm not speaking against that. I'm just saying in a situation like mine, I think you really need to look at this a different way when you're talking about, oh, do you have this medical? No, I'm not a medical professional. I don't claim to be. Every class and thing I do, I tell you, I'm not a medical professional. I'm a vocal coach. Teach you stuff. Try to catch you at the pass, man. Trying to help you here. So just remember when you're going through stuff, especially if you're in a position where you're trying to apply things that you know and your knowledge, go out there and just earn the authority. Go out there and just do it. If you need the training for it, if you need the piece of paper, by all means get it. Do whatever you have to do. But I just want you to just keep that in mind in the future going forward, as not everything on the surface is as it seems. All right, my friends, I'm wrapping up out of here. Hire me for vocal coaching. Go to millionspeaks.com, MILLIAN, millionspeaks.com. Have all kind of cool stuff going on there. Look around. You're welcome to hit me up. There's a contact form. Just message me. I'm very easy to find. Let me know what's going on with you. I'll be happy to help you. And until then, Million out. See you soon.